So hello to the session today, which is called Embodied Mindfulness, and I am carrying on with Sunday's practice where we did the whole idea of coming home to the body. And if we use the metaphor of the home for the body, then we treat our body like how we look after our home, hopefully. We wouldn't allow the rain to come in, we would always do our repair, so that thing was all about self-care. Now obviously, why is it called Embodied Mindfulness? Well, this session is all about somatics, because when we're out of touch from our bodies, we are out of touch with our lives and we're not living our lives fully. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean by somatics is soma is a Greek word meaning of the body, but obviously mindfulness, which comes from the Buddhist tradition, and yoga, which comes from the Hindu tradition, see the whole idea of mind and body being absolutely connected. Now the trouble is we live in a kind of Western society which has got this Cartesian dualism where the mind is separate from the body and the mind is more important than the body. And that comes from Descartes, the philosopher. Now, some people would say we live in a very disembodied culture, and what we mean about disembodied culture is we are so busy entertaining our short attention spans and our boredom, and filling that with these distractions, which means that we spend less time feeling and sensing. And for some people that can be a very useful technique, because what you're doing is you're numbing yourself and you're not allowing yourself to deal with difficult emotions. But the more that we listen to our body and the more that we listen to and put the welcome mat out to difficult emotions, the more that we can care for ourselves and the more we can care for others, because we become much more self-compassionate and empathetic, which has been the key theme of much of my mindfulness sessions, because we really need it when we are not getting the hugs and the touchy-feely and the contact with humans that we get from the physical contact that we with the oxytocin, the feel-good hormones. And we've been doing a lot of this kind of self-compassionate touch, for example, to make ourselves feel better. Now, obviously, the body is the most important key, because our body stores very, very strong emotions. And The Body Knows the Score, which is a really good book by Gabor Mate, looks at the way that, our repressed and PTSD and trauma and all these things show up in the body as illness. And when emotions are stored in the body, it's much safer to work with the physical body when emotionally overwhelmed. And somatic practices is what yoga is all about. And so is mindfulness as well, because yoga scaffolds mindfulness. What do I mean by that? It's witnessing and observing in a non-judgmental manner without being reactive or overwhelmed. Every time we slow down, every time we pay attention, we are training ourselves to observe. And then we down-regulate the stress response in that window of tolerance. As a graph, you've got your top line, hyper, when you're hyper-vigilant, and when you've got anxious body, anxious mind, or both, or hyper at the top, and the bottom line is hyper when you drop into ventral vagal, where you become frozen or stuck. So fight or flight's there, hyper is freeze flop. So when we talk about fight, flight, freeze flop in our stress response, this is what we're trying to manage. Now, this sort of practice, embodied mindfulness, is about befriending the body and resourcing the body when it becomes overwhelmed. So ask yourself, has there been any situation where you've been practicing mindfulness or yoga and you've got quite overwhelmed by emotions? If that's the case, then I'll give you some top tips and some resourcing tools. And these are somatic resourcing tools. And these are resourcing tools that I do all the time with people. And then we're going to do a nice body scan, and you're going to lay on the floor and we're going to talk you through it. Now, what happens when you become overwhelmed when you're practicing mindfulness? Okay. So the first, let's go through them. Let's go through what you can do to resource yourself when you're just overwhelmed. Number one, feel grounded. Focus on the contact between your body and whatever is holding and supporting you, and feel that sensation. It can be your hands on your thighs and your hips on the floor and your feet, the back line of the body, whatever is there. Just focus on that. We've talked about compassionate self-touch. That's really, really important. Compassionate self-touch can be very, very comforting, and do what feels good for you. And focus on the warmth and the weight of your hands on the spot where you feel it. Now, what do I mean by it? Well, strong emotions are stored in the body. There will be a part of the body where something will come up. You know, people will say, oh, I was in yoga class and we were doing some hip work and I was crying and stuff like that. So things can come up because it can be some part of the body where it's stored in. Focus on your breath and deepen into the breath, and focus on and stay with the wave-like motion, focusing on the attention in the abdomen, right there, the centre. My favourite one is pendulation. This is one that's been done with PTSD with veterans basically what happens is wherever you feel that place of tension, it could be right there in the chest. It's like poof, somebody's hit you right in the stomach, like you're being punched in the guts. And that it can be a trigger. You might be triggered by something. Something can happen where you can be triggered. My trigger alert has been just going, oh, I've been triggered quite a lot lately, and that's part of the old position of being in lockdown. You alternate between the area of discomfort and comfort, and you go backwards and forwards, and you explore with mindful curiosity a neutral spot. Explore it, go around it. And then you go back to the hot spot, and then you go backwards, forwards. Favourite one we've talked about before is to label and name. Labelling and naming is fantastic. If something comes up, particularly an emotion, it helps you to separate and distance and go like objective, third person, say hello to it with a nice soft. It's very important, that soothing voice. It's the same as the way that you use compassionate self-touch with the oxytocin, the feel-good hormones. You say hello to it and you'll just go, that's grief. Just the best thing you could do is not to ignore what's going on. That's the thing with emotions. The more you suppress, push them down, they will come back up at some point. But you are not meant to become the emotion. You're meant to observe, witness, objectify, separate, non-judgmental. And this window of tolerance is so important. You are meant to build up slowly the resilience by going into a space that's a little bit challenging. But always remember not to go far in if it's too much. So shall we practice a befriending the body exercise? So this befriending the body exercise, remember your resourcing tools: contact with the floor, compassionate self-touch, focus on the breath, pendulate, label. Oh yeah, I forgot another one. Yes, refocus. Go to a place where it feels neutral. Or you could just sort of like explore the contour and the shapes and the tactile sensations of your hands and your feet. You just go somewhere completely different. I like sort of like because sensing is a really important part of somatics, you can use a different sense. It doesn't have to be tactile. It can be the sound of the birds, something you can hear, okay, something you can see, okay. It could be like you might be laid outside. You can just look at some colours and some clouds, look out the window. Sensations in your mouth, tickling palate. It's linked to your vagus nerve, that. And what stays in Vegas? I'm joking, but your vagusness is part of your parasympathetic nervous system and your fight-flight response. And obviously, you're focusing in on. You can focus on smells. Now, obviously, I've given one of the top tips before, haven't I? If you're triggered, put one of your favourite smells on a handkerchief and then tuck it. Have it there as your access to come back to. Something that you really like. So let's do that now. So I'm just inviting you to lie down on the floor and find a position that's really comfortable, because we're hopefully going to try to be as still as possible. and hoping that you feel very supported. So if you've got lower back troubles, bend your knees. You can feet wide. You have your knees not coming together. You can support your head with a pillow or anything. Just get really comfy. If you're on a sofa, lay on a sofa. If you want to do this seated, it's up to you. So befriending the body is a good exercise. This is a good exercise if you have had a negative view of your own body, such as an eating disorder or something like that, or you don't feel good about your body. I don't feel good. I've had a son. I've got stretch marks, and sometimes I just don't feel good about that. There's parts of me that I just go, don't like them. So it's quite nice. And also as well, when you've had a very traumatizing experience, we tend to disassociate and we don't like our body, because our body is the place where the conflict took place. It's where it happened to us, the physical pain, the trauma. And that's the challenge, isn't it? The challenge is to come back into the home of the body and feel comfortable with that space. So just see if you can feel supported and relaxed on your back. And just feel the weight of the body. Either eyes closed or a soft gaze, so you feel safe, so you know where you are in your environment. And just give into the weight of your body and feel the ground holding and supporting you. That sense of connection, that sense of groundedness. I'm just going to ask you just to move your attention through your body, almost as if you're sort of waving a scanning wand from the head to the toe. Just see what area calls to you. It can be an area of tension, any awareness at all, so that it stands out. It could be a place of maybe even a little bit of challenge. And just allow your attention to get to the right place. Not with your thinking mind, but with an exploration of open-hearted, non-judgmental curiosity. Just feeling the body. And when you've found that area, place your spotlight of attention on that sensation. Can you give it a shape? Can you give it a colour? Can you give it a texture? Rather than thinking about it, just visualise the shape, the colour, the texture. Stay in this area of attention and start to apply soft breathing, almost like a gentle touch. Like a gentle touch of a beloved pet or a person. And if you feel as though you need to do so, use some soothing, loving touch. And as you place the spotlight of attention onto this area, send a light, soft breath into that area, as if you're directing your attention there. And try to stay with it until you notice some change. See if you can allow the exhale to soften. See if you can, there can be an opening of some kind or a change, such as the melting of tension. If the spotlight of your attention is, say for example, spiky texture, quite sharp edges, with a strong sort of colour, see if you can breathe into that. See if you can make it something that's soft, a calming colour like blue or green. Can you take away its edges? Can you take away the roughness of its texture with each breath? Can you change the colour into something peaceful? So you're breathing in and you're softening. And if the mind wanders, just keep that focus. If it's too much of a challenge, just wander around its edges like a pile of tennis balls. If it's too much, feel the weight of your body, feel the ground. Feel the focus of the warmth and the weight of your hands maybe on that area to feel soothed as you breathe in, to expand and melt and soften. If it gets too much, you might want to pull back. Just pendulate to a place that feels numb or of comfort, and explore with mindful curiosity the neutral spot. Explore it for as long as you need to, until you feel comfortable enough to go back to the hot spot. And allow that movement to go backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, like a pendulum. Take your time. Keep breathing into that spot. Allow it to soften, loosen, open. If you're finding that you're getting too involved, maybe reactive or overwhelmed, can you distance yourself? Can you label it? Can you name it? Say softly, this is a part of me that feels. Extend compassionate empathy towards that part of you. It is you. And then if you notice this change, if you notice any change at all, melting or opening, and let go of the soft focus of the breath and see what is there now. Send a note to this part of your body. You might want to say one of the following phrases. I welcome you, or I accept you, or I thank you. Make it short and sweet. And then notice again and see what has changed right in this spotlight of awareness now, right here, right now. Without thinking, just noticing judgment, non-judgmentally, just observing and witnessing. Staying curious about what's happening here. And if maybe you want to continue this practice, you can allow your attention to move to another area of the body, or to simply repeat. And then just start to notice the ground, whatever is holding and supporting you. Come to an awareness of the breath, any sounds. Just allow anything to come in and out of your awareness, dropping all focus. Just notice what is right here, right now. And then just let go of everything. Just come back to where you are, the room, the time of day. Just have a little bit of a look around. And with acknowledging the end of the practice, just a little reflection. It's always good to reflect. Remember, when we slow down and we pay attention, we can practice self-care. With this question in mind, how friendly do you feel towards your body? If that's the case, with it being Mental Health Awareness Week, I want you to consider this. What small change, what little commitment, what do you want, how do you want to treat your body this week? And this is our challenge. We always do a little bit of homework. So remember, how do you feel about your body right now? Considering and reflecting this practice. And what small change can you make this week? What little commitment, a tiny little commitment, a little intention in how you want to treat your body and how you probably want to make a small change. Drinking more water, more food. 5 minutes of meditation a day. Maybe a little bit of yoga. See what happens. Okay, so thank you for that. Namaste. Always remember, challenge comes ahead. Don't forget your resourcing tools. Ground, compassionate self-touch, focus on the breath, pendulate to an area of comfort or numbness, labelling and naming, and refocus to a neutral area such as outline of the hands and feet or both. Yes, this being human is a guest house, but laying out the welcome mat to all difficult experiences and emotions is what makes us human, and it is being human. Numbing or disassociating from difficult things means that we're unable to move forward and that we're missing so much from our lives. Yes, we've talked about this in last session, that, in terms of compassion, according to the Buddhists, compassion, self-compassion especially, is not depicted as something sweet and fluffy and a nice flower. It's depicted as something very fierce, a little bit angry. This is the challenge, the matrix. Do you want to take the red pill? Or do you want to take the blue pill? Do you want to see the truth and see how far the rabbit goes? Or would you want to live in this world of illusion? Because mindfulness, self-compassion, that's what's important. Okay, right, next session, I'll see you. It's 3 times a week mindfulness. We learn a lot. We've done tons and tons. Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, 7 p.m.